So the interview with friends and compadres, the James Mason, keeps going. And I was just told that I'm supposed to talk to you, and I would like to know your name.
Okay. My name is Mary Lou Alejandres.
Yeah. And you are from?
I am from Santa Cruz, California. Originally born in Arizona, but I was raised in California.
Okay. And you said to me that you speak a little Spanish.
A little bit, yes.
Why?
Because when I was young, I didn't speak any English. I only spoke Spanish. But because at that time we got in trouble in school for speaking Spanish, so the teachers would hit us.
Okay.
So I had to learn to speak English really quickly because every time I spoke Spanish, I would get hit in school.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
ugly. That's
right.
an ugly thing.
Absolutely, it's terrible.
Where are your parents from?
My parents are from Texas.
Yeah. But originally they came from Mexico.
No, their parents came from Mexico.
I don't get used to this. That's another.
So I'm not.
Generation
Yes,
before.
yes. My grandfather was originally from Michoacan. My grandmother was an Apache, full-blooded Apache.
Okay.
My mother's parents were killed when she was young, so she was raised by her sisters. So I never met them.
Why were they killed?
I'm not sure. There was some accident
Oh.
a long time ago.
Wasn't a murder,
No,
it was an
no. It was an accident of some sort, and they both died in the accident.
Because when I hear in the States that somebody got killed in Europe, you would not imply that this could be a murder, but here, yes.
Yes, yes.
So this is why I was
Yeah, no.
asking.
This was a accident of some sort that happened. Nobody really knows the story. It never was made clear to us. All I know is that my mother was raised by her sisters,
Okay.
so we never met.
Is your mom still alive?
No,
And
she
your-
passed in
and your
2000.
dad?
Both of them have passed. Yeah.
So this is I got a little introduction now about you. This is for James. And I would like to know, where did you meet him?
Oh my goodness! I met Mr. Mason through Barrios Unidos, actually. Actually, he was working at the university, doing a radio show at the university, and I used to hear him on the radio show from the UCSC University, but I never met him in person. And then one day he showed up at Barrios, and he wanted to come and get to know who Barrios was, because he knew about us. I just didn't know enough about him, but he wanted to connect young people to the radio show, to media, and the arts of the media. And so we had youth groups and young people. And so we got involved with him, with our youth coordinators, bringing up our youth up to the university, and him teaching them all about the radio station.
Oh, that's a good thing.
Yeah, all the radio station and all the equipment and all this stuff. And he had a young girl. Her name was Soledad, and she was in a wheelchair. She was handicapped. She was in a wheelchair, and she became one of the star pupils of our group and the radio show. And she ended up James took her under his wing and taught her about the radio station and everything. And she was the one that was the most involved, and she was so special. So not only because she was disabled, but because she was so bright, and she had so much to offer her own community in Watsonville, Santa Cruz, Watsonville area. And he taught her the ropes of the radio, where she became the star of the show. And so eventually she had her own segment.
Super.
Yes, it was awesome.
How old was she?
I would say between 14 and 16 years old.
Super.
Yeah, I think she started when she was 14 till all through high school.
Right.
Yeah, so she worked with him, and James became a very big part of her family as a whole, because her parents were also very supportive of her doing this type of work and keeping her in a positive way. And not only that, her parents had another child. Unfortunately, that child passed away. Passed away he had health issues, and he passed away within a month of being born. And James Mason and I were there with the family the whole time that child passed away, and went through everything that we could with the family to support them until the day they buried that baby. And it was probably one of the saddest things that we've ever witnessed, is seeing a little baby in a little tiny coffin about this big. But Mr. Mason, the one thing about him is how he brought life back into something that was so sad.
And how did you do it?
Through his show, how he taught people that even an innocent child that was not even a month old had brought so much joy to so many people in such a short time. And he was able to express that,
And transmit it.
yeah, and transmit it through the radio, how nobody else could. I couldn't do that, but he was able to do that, you know.
This is how many years ago?
I'm trying to think, it was probably 2002 maybe? Maybe 2002, about that time.
I've heard only good things. Big heart.
Mr. Mason?
About James Mason.
I'll tell you something that you don't know.
Okay, go ahead.
As an elder, Mr. Mason and I and my uncle, I don't know if he ever told you about my Tío Beto. So we call him Tío Beto because, number one, he was our uncle. He was my actual uncle. But him and Mr. Mason were both our bus drivers for Barrios Unidos.
Okay.
And they were best friends. And Mr. Mason taught Theo how to drive the bus and taught him how to. He actually taught my uncle how to.
And he became a bus driver.
And he became a bus driver.
I just heard that from Jamie.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they became best friends. And the only time I ever got in trouble was when I hung out with those two.
Okay.
Because they were so funny. We would go on these long trips through the country as we were going, but it wasn't long trip. We were on Barrios Unidos was going from one prison to another because we work in the prisons. But they would tell me stories, history stories along the way of what they did in that town, what they were able to do, of things when they organized people.
Right.
For social change back in the day when most of us didn't even know what social change was about. And they taught me so much, both of them. But anytime I ever got in trouble was when I was with those two guys. Yeah. They were hilarious.
When you say back in the days, of how many years backwards you're referring?
They're talking about in the 60s.
Okay.
In the 60s when they were both younger, and they were trying to. When blacks weren't allowed in restaurants, and when Mexicans weren't allowed in restaurants, they lived through all of that. And through their stories, I was able to, even though I experienced my own prejudice, they experienced so much more than I did. And so, but they when they would tell me those stories, I could see them reliving it, and I could not only feel their pain, but their compassion for what needed to be done to make a difference, to make it equal for everybody.
So what did Barrios Unidos do in prison?
Well, what we do in prison, we do a lot of things. So I've been working in the prisons for about almost 27 years. So I work in the prisons. I work with individuals, with a lot of lifers, people who are incarcerated, to show them that there's another way. There's another way to besides violence. You know, that there can actually be peace if we really want it. And trying to teach individuals who are coming out of prison that life is more than just that. There's so much more to life. And the other thing is teaching them that about the injustice of the criminal justice system, is trying to teach them that it affects all of us. And if we don't do something to change it, it affects the next generation, the next generation. So we call it the 7 generations, right? Right. So 7 generations. What I do now is going to affect 7 generations from now.
Yeah.
So that's what we're trying to do. Sure.
Get up!
7 generations.
Yeah, we always talk about 7 generations, and because Barrios Unidos does a lot of indigenous ceremonial stuff, you know, so we do a lot of ceremonial that we teach other people about ceremonies and the way our people were before. They took all that away from us. And coming back and teaching our young people how to do that, and teaching the men and women behind bars about that we are much more, that those bars cannot stop the greater spirit from coming through those walls.
Right.
If you really believe in it, you know. And so we do a lot of work in the prisons. Like I said, I've been doing it for over 27 years. Witnesses that you have already interviewed are people that I have worked with in the prison for years and years and years, and those individuals are here today because they took the chance on saying, you know what, I want to do something different in my life. I want to go home, and I want to be able to make a difference when I get out, to give back to my community, from which I took from at one point.
You get paid for that work?
Not for the prison work. We've never gotten paid for the prison work. I have a full-time job, so I get paid through other contracts. But all the work that we've done in the prison has all been volunteer, out of our own pocket.
And the bus driving of Mr. James Mason?
It's always been volunteer, yes. Always been volunteer.
Who pays the gas?
Well, Barrios pays the gas. Barrios Unidos will pay for the gas, but that's it.
But where did Barrios Unidos get the money from?
Well, we have general funds. Well, so we get funding from foundations, but we also have general funds that we get because we have our own silk screening shirt shop. So that money comes back into Barrios Unidos. That allows us to use that money how we want to. So it has no strings attached because it's always coming back from one program into another program, you know. So it's not that. So the funding sources, they have restrictions. But then we also get some funding sources that are just general funding. And that could be from a foundation or not. So it could be from a private person that just will fund us, you know. So those funds have no restrictions.
Right.
But most of the time what we do is most of the work that we've done in the prisons and for the bus driver and for Mr. Mason's time, stuff like that, has all been volunteer. All been volunteer.
So many years.
Yes, many years. Many years.
So since you know him so long, you know how old he is,
yes.
right?
You won't believe it.
No, I met him yesterday and I keep freaking out.
Yeah.
What would you wish him?
What I wish him? I wish him to continue being just who he is, because I don't want him to change because he has such a young spirit. Like I said, it's hard for me to keep up with him, you know, and I'm 30 years behind him, let alone these youngsters that think they got all that. They ain't got nothing on him, because Mr. Mason could outrun you. He could still run up a hill, you know. I mean, I've seen him run up a hill, and it's amazing the energy that he has. And I know his children. I've known his children since they were little. They're the same age as my daughter. His children and my child grew up together, you know, as little kids. And so I know all his family, you know. I know all his children, and I've seen him grow up. I've seen them become who they are. And yet, you know, they can't keep up with him. You know?
They can't keep up with him.
No, his energy level is just so, I think what Mr. Mason has, something that some of us have forgotten, is that it's the spirit that takes you there. It has nothing to do with age. It's how
In
you
this case,
feel.
the sentence age is just a number.
Yes, Because if you look at him, number one, he doesn't look his age. He definitely doesn't act his age, you know, and he is just so. He's such an inspiration to people. If people give him the chance to listen to him, I've always said, well, every time I introduce him to people, because I've taken him to different events and different groups that I do throughout my work, and I said, you are looking at a walking history book here.
Yeah.
This man is a walking history book. And all you got to do is ask him a question, and he'll probably give you the answer that you never read in a book, because he'll give you the true history of what was, you know. And that's what's the difference of Mr. Mason and other people.
So I ask you to say 3 words to describe him to a third person.
I would say he was honorable, forgiving, I don't know how to say a third word other than I love him. The love that he has for the people. I can't put in that in one word. He has so much love for people. And it doesn't matter the color of the skin. If you're treated wrong, Mr. Mason will be there for you, to fight for you. If you just ask him for help, he will help you any way he can. So, and that's one of the things that I have called on him before when I'm in a rut, and he's always been there for me. He's never ever let me down. So if you ever want a true friend, you think of Jim Mason. That man is a true friend. I guess that
You make me cry.
he makes me cry. You have to understand that when you work with him, when you know him, and you've seen him and what he's willing to do. People, you don't find people like that every day.
No, you find them, but not every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Mr. Mason is a true friend. When he gives you his friendship, it's for real. Yeah.
There's nothing to add. Now we're both sitting here.
I know.
crying.
I love him. He's a beautiful man, and I'm honored to know him. I'm honored to learn from him. I'm honored to hang out with him and laugh with him and get in trouble with him too.
Right.
You know, because he's funny. You know, he's a lot of fun to hang out with too. You know, yeah, he's funny.
But that was a very nice, una pequeñita charla sobre el señor James. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, muchas gracias.